You are standing barefoot in a stone courtyard in Sparta. Above you, the city is quiet, too quiet. 3 days ago, your home burned. Your children are already dead. The march is over. The shouting stopped hours ago. Now comes something worse. 31 women stand beside you in perfect rows, not chained, not guarded closely, counted. A man approaches from the far end of the courtyard. He does not introduce himself. He doesn't need to. His crimson cloak announces his authority. When he speaks, his voice is dry, stripped bare, his Greek sharp enough to cut words down to bone. You are no longer Athenians, he says. You are no longer wives. Everything you were is finished. Each sentence lands with the precision of a blow that leaves no visible bruise. Melina does not move. She has already learned that movement attracts attention, and in Sparta, attention is never a gift. They now belong to the state. Not as common slaves. Slaves serve with their hands. They will serve differently. He speaks of distribution, of the city's needs, of functions. The words are administrative, almost neutral, as if he were discussing the movement of resources, not the erasure of lives. And in that moment, Melina understands something essential. The true horror is not immediate violence. It is the system that replaces it. A mechanism that requires no anger, no sadism. Rules are enough. Records are enough. Decisions made far from the faces of those who suffer them are enough. Sparta does not scream. Sparta classifies. The man turns and walks away without waiting for acknowledgement. The silence thickens. The Spartan women step forward and begin separating the group with calm efficiency. Melina feels herself crossing an invisible threshold, not into chaos, but into something far worse. A machine that already knows what to do with her. No voices are raised. They don't need to be. Their gestures are brief and exact, like signals memorized long ago. The women are divided into equal groups, 8 in each, and led toward different buildings lining the courtyard. Melina walks with her eyes lowered, counting her steps, forcing her thoughts into order. In Sparta, she senses that thinking too much is a dangerous luxury. The building they lead her into is austere, built of bare stone with no ornament, no symbol. Inside, the air is cool. It smells faintly of clean water. There are no chains, no screams. That absence unsettles her more than either would have. A woman waits beside a stone table and a vessel. Her face shows neither curiosity nor rejection, only function. When she speaks, her tone is neither kind nor hostile. It is the voice of someone who has repeated the same task too many times to retain emotion. Melina understands without being told. She must comply before being asked. She has already seen how this place works. Here, resistance does not halt the process. It only slows it and makes it more uncomfortable. She answers each question in a steady voice, as if every response buys a few seconds of calm. The woman marks symbols onto a wax tablet. She does not explain their meaning. She does not need to. In Sparta, knowledge belongs to those who govern, not to those who are governed. When it is finished, Melina is led to a shared room. Other women sit in silence. Some stare at the floor. Others study the walls, as if searching for cracks that do not exist. No one speaks. Silence becomes a shared language, a form of protection. That night, food and water are brought. Enough. Carefully measured. Melina notices the precision and understands something more about the system enclosing her. This is not careless cruelty. It is selective care. What is useful is preserved. Everything else is expendable. Sparta does not waste resources, and now she is one of them. As she lies awake on the hard bed, memories intrude uninvited. The smell of smoke clinging to her hair, ash still on her tongue as if the fire followed her. 72 hours ago, she was the wife of Hippocrates, the Athenian strategist at Diala, mistress of an orderly household, mother of 2 children who now exist only as an unbearable absence. That life feels distant, as if it belonged to someone else. Here, her name barely matters. What matters is what she represents, what she can offer, what she can produce. She remembers the stories Athens told about Sparta, exaggerations meant to explain their enemy's strangeness. stories that no longer seem exaggerated. Not because everything here is brutal, but because everything is inevitable. Every step was decided before she ever took it. In that silent space, Melina realizes she has entered a city that does not improvise destinies. At dawn, Melina wakes before anyone calls for her. She hasn't truly slept. Her body remained tense, alert, as if it learned in a single night that complete rest is a risk. Light enters through a narrow opening high in the wall. It offers no view of the outside. Sparta offers no views, only functions. The women are led out again, one by one, into rooms identical to the night before. In Melina's room, there is a stone table, a vessel of clear water, a low bench. The older woman returns, this time accompanied by a younger one. There is no hurry. There is no pause. Everything unfolds with the calm precision of a ritual repeated for generations. And whatever comes next has already been decided. The questions continue. They are not inquisitive. They are technical. Data is recorded. Cycles are noted. Backgrounds are reduced to silent numbers. Melina answers without protest. She has already understood that here neither consent nor resistance is required, only cooperation. When the wax tablet fills with markings once more, Melina senses that something final has occurred, even though she cannot yet name it. She has not been judged. She has not been condemned. She has been classified. As she is led from the room, she hears muffled sounds drifting from behind other doors. No words, only restrained emotion. Sparta does not require shout to impose its will. Control is exercised through anticipation. Each woman imagines her own fate, and that private imagining proves more effective than any explicit threat. Back in the inner courtyard, Melina studies the architecture with new awareness. Everything here is built to last. Nothing is built to comfort. The stones are not beautiful, but they endure. Sparta does not construct to please. It constructs to remain. The same principle applies to people. Those who fit the structure are preserved. Those who do not are corrected, reassigned, or removed from the calculation altogether. When a Spartan woman approaches and instructs her to follow, Melina rises immediately. She has already learned the most important rule of this place. Those who hesitate are lost. As she walks, she makes a decision so small it barely registers as thought. Sparta may control her body, her time, her immediate future, but it will not fully control her mind. That fragile decision, barely formed, barely named, becomes her first act of resistance. To understand what is about to happen to Melina, it is necessary to step backward in time. Long before she ever stood in this courtyard, Sparta was not born an anomaly. It became one through accumulated decisions, made under pressure, justified by fear, refined by generations who learned to live without alternatives. Centuries earlier, Sparta conquered fertile land. It could not govern without constant anxiety. The subjugated population was large, persistent, impossible to absorb completely. They lived beside their conquerors, working the soil, preserving memory and resentment. From that moment, the city learned a lesson that would define it. Survival would depend on control, not consensus, not persuasion, control. This need reshaped every aspect of Spartan life. Childhood ceased to be a space of protection and became a phase of preparation. Family yielded to the collective. Affection became a liability. Anything that did not reinforce dominance was reduced or removed. The body ceased to belong to the individual. It became a resource managed by the city, not through personal malice, but through systemic coherence. Over time, that coherence was praised as virtue. Spartans learned not to doubt, not to question, not to require explanation. Doubt was seen as a crack through which chaos could enter. Critical thinking was replaced by ritual. Ritual hardened into habit. And when a practice becomes habit, it stops appearing cruel. It simply is. Melina, seated now on a stone bench, becomes the result of this logic. She is not hated. She is not punished for being an enemy. She is absorbed into an ancient calculation, one that determines who serves, how they serve, and for how long. Melina does not yet understand every detail of this system, but she feels its weight, in the way she is watched, in the precision with which she is moved, in the total absence of explanation. The training Sparta imposed on its children sought more than strong bodies. It sought unwavering minds. From early childhood, obedience was taught without question, endurance without complaint. This was not punishment, it was conditioning. Every deprivation, every test was designed to erase a specific response. Over time, this produced men who required no explicit orders. They knew what was expected because the system had replaced morality itself. They no longer distinguished between permitted and forbidden. They distinguished between useful and useless. Everything else was noise. And in the shadow of this training existed a final stage, reserved for those who had already proven they could act without internal restraint. It was never discussed openly, only hinted at through euphemism, as if naming it directly might fracture the order it upheld. A space where obedience was perfected, where actions occurred without witnesses, without questions. Melina does not know its details, but she senses its presence like pressure in the air. The women whisper at night, fragments of stories, unconfirmed accounts. In Sparta, fear rarely requires proof. Possibility is enough. From the outside, Sparta appears calm, disciplined, ordered. But beneath that surface, tension never dissipates. It accumulates. The city endures because everyone accepts their role. Melina understands that the men raised in this environment are not individual monsters. They are the logical outcome of a system that eliminated doubt as a survival instinct. They have learned to sever feeling from action, to act without reflection, to obey without question. And it is these men who decide the fate of those who fall into Sparta's hands, not out of hatred, not for pleasure, but out of habit, out of consistency with a system that allows no exception. As she watches them move through the courtyard, Melina recognizes an uncomfortable truth. Resistance alone will not save her. To survive here, she must understand the system well enough to anticipate it. She must learn to think the way Sparta thinks, without becoming it entirely. The woman who enters the room does not present herself as a guard or a caretaker. She presents herself as an intermediary. She is young, strong. Her posture reflects years of physical discipline. Melina recognizes this kind of body immediately. It is not accidental. It is the result of a culture that elevates resilience above all else. "My name is Gorgo," the woman says. She offers no comfort, only information. In Sparta, that is the closest thing to courtesy. Gorgo explains the situation in short, measured sentences. The evaluations have already been completed. The marks on the tablets have been reviewed. Melina has been deemed suitable for a domestic assignment, not as an equal, not as a guest, as part of a secondary household structure designed to fulfill a specific need of the state. Melina listens without interruption. She understands that every phrase has been rehearsed, passed down from woman to woman across generations. The exchange makes one thing unmistakably clear. This assignment is not a privilege. It is a classification. Other outcomes exist for those who fail to meet the criteria. Gorgo does not describe them. She doesn't need to. The silence surrounding those alternatives is enough. In Sparta, what is not named is often what is most feared. "If you cooperate, you will live," Gorgo says plainly. "If you don't, you will be reassigned." There is no threat in her voice, only fact. Melina understands that, to Gorgo, this is honesty. There are no promises, no apologies. In that moment, Melina realizes something unsettling. Spartan women do not see themselves as victims. They do not see themselves as oppressors. They see themselves as necessary. When Gorgo rises to leave, she leaves one sentence behind. "Tomorrow, you will know your fate." She adds nothing more. There is no need. Melina is left alone, aware that her future now depends on an administrative decision made by people she will never meet. The man waiting in the courtyard does not move as Melina approaches. He stands with a stillness that is not passive, but alert. He is not young, but his body retains the density of long training. His face shows no